from the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CC James Azar.
Hey folks, good morning. Happy Wednesday, the last Wednesday of the Lord's year 2020, I guess. Good day today. I think for a lot of us, we're counting down tomorrow, New Year's Eve. We're all ready to wish 2020 farewell, so you can do that. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe now to our podcast. Turn on the notification bell. If you're listening on your favorite podcast listening platform, please do so now. Subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. Let us know how we're doing. Our entire Practitioner Brief can be found on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. You can get it all there. And now let's get right into today's Practitioner Brief. A few stories. So not a lot happening this week, and part of it has to do with the fact that a lot of people are off on vacation. A lot of it has to do with the fact that people are out on vacation. They're just taking some time away. And so as you're browsing, you're trying to find stuff. A lot of it is alerts and so forth, but we do have a Solarwinds update. And we've got a few interesting stories that we'll talk about today as well. So let's start with the Solarwinds update, which according to Microsoft, the end goal of the Solarwinds supply chain compromise was to pivot to the victim's cloud assets after deploying the Sunburst and Solarwinds backdoor on their local networks. No new TTPs were shared in the blog post that Microsoft published on Monday, which was intended to provide Microsoft 365 Defender users with threat hunting techniques for investigating the Sunburst attack. However, Microsoft also shared an important bit of information, meaning the end goal was to reach the cloud, the data stored on the cloud. Microsoft's previous articles also match those of the NSA, which hinted at the fact that the attacker's ultimate goal was to generate SAML tokens to forge authentication tokens, allowing access to cloud resources. The threat actors behind the SolarWinds hack first had to compromise the SolarWinds Orion platform build system and abuse it to deliver a backdoor injected as a legitimate DLL via the software update system. A lot of talk around zero trust. How do you trust software updates going forward? How do you kind of do all that stuff? And very valid discussion points, by the way, right? Like I did a survey a while ago about zero trust, and I said, is it a buzzword or is it a real technology? And as an industry, we were at a 50-50 split. So very interesting, because part of what this is and part of what they were trying to take advantage of works around the idea of zero trust, meaning I never trust you and you have to authenticate every single thing you do, including even your software updates. So very interesting. The concept is obviously in the midst of many discussions post SolarWinds. Microsoft also detailed the step-by-step procedure used by the attackers to gain access to the victim's cloud assets. So they used the compromised SolarWinds DLL to activate a backdoor that enabled the attackers to remotely control and operate on a device. Using the backdoor access to steal credentials, escalate privileges, and move laterally to gain the ability to create valid SAML tokens using any of the two methods. One, the stealing of the SAML signing certificate, which was the first path, or the second path was adding to or modifying existing Federation trust. And then the third step of it was using attacker-created SAML tokens to access cloud resources and perform actions leading to the exfiltration of emails and persistence in the cloud, getting access to apps, data, you name it. So, yesterday, I spoke about several of the free malicious activity detection tools that were released by CISA and CrowdStrike. So you guys, those are also linked on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. You can get them there as well. So let's go into our interesting stories of the day. One, FBI's warning that home surveillance IoT devices are being used by threat actors for recording, swatting attacks as the kind of abuse that practice. For those who don't know what swatting is, it's typically done in the gaming community against gamers who are pretty good or trash talkers. So as they're kind of videoing their gaming experience, you call the cops and you call in a situation that requires a SWAT team that breaks into the home and arrests the person, and it's all caught on camera. A very dangerous practice at that. I know there's been injuries to the people who are victims of it, including police officers who were called onto the scene. So the FBI issued an alert yesterday on this, saying swatters are hijacking home surveillance and other type of devices with audio and video capabilities to watch their victims as they are being swatted. So as you're upgrading your stuff, the FBI has a bunch of good cyber hygiene, use multi-factor authentication so no one can take over it, so you don't become a swatting victim, and so forth. We live in a very, very interesting time, folks, and we're bound to see some of this stuff happen. Obviously, on YouTube, if you search swatting, you see it. It's not pleasant. It looks like a movie, but it's real life. And I know that there's been people who've been hurt by these swatting attacks. So just keeping that as more internet accessible devices enter our homes, we're more likely to become victims. Now, imagine doing this in the middle of a board call of a CEO or a CFO of a publicly traded company and swatting their home while they're in the middle of a board call because they're doing it all by Zoom because of COVID. So, scary thought, but nonetheless something very, very real. Another one is the AutoHotkey-Based password stealer that's now targeting US and Canadian banking users. So for those of you out there, customers of financial institutions are the primary targets for credential exfiltration, with a focus on banks like Scotiabank, Royal Bank of Canada, HSBC, Alterna Bank, Capital One, Manulife, and EQ Bank were also included on the list, as well as the Indian banking firm ICICI Bank. AutoHotkey is an open source custom scripting language for Microsoft Windows aimed at providing easy hotkeys for macro creation and software automation that allows users to automate repetitive tasks in any window application. Apparently, they're using a Visual Basic for Application Auto Open macro, which is subsequently used to drop and execute a downloader client script via legitimate portable AHK script compiler executable, folks. So something to keep in mind. Trend Micro researchers discovered this and are warning users of it. Some of the stuff is written in Russian. In the malware components. So again, most malware does come from Russia. It doesn't mean that the threat actors are Russian. It just means that whoever's doing this attack bought Russian malware or could be of Russian origin, and it requires investigation, and attribution is extremely difficult in cyber, so we'll get into that. And finally, my last piece here, folks, is kind of on a personal note. So browsing the news last night, I saw something very interesting that said that if you're going to go back to travel next year, they're going to require you to have a COVID vaccine passport, which was very interesting. I was like, okay, that's cool. So is it kind of like the old vaccination books that we all had as kids? I don't know how old some of my listeners are, but if you're, my age or a bit older, everyone remembers the vaccination book. Before every school year, you'd go to the doctor. If you switch schools, you'd get your vaccination book to show the school that you've been vaccinated against all the diseases so that you're not a germ-carrying kid at your school. But here's the interesting part. No, it's actually digital. So meaning every country is going to require you to go online and fill out an application if you want to enter that nation with your COVID vaccine, including your PHI, your personal health information. Which then got me thinking, it's a lot of information. How are you securing it? What are you doing with it? Is this going to be a global database of visitors now? That is every government going to have your healthcare information in countries you want to visit because of COVID? And is that an overextension of our rights? Are they using this pandemic in a way to overextend and over leverage the power of the government, of the free movement of people with this COVID passport? Because looking at the entire story, and this has been published in several places, including Bloomberg and John Solomon's Just the News, and a few others, very interesting. Essentially, they make you go online and fill out an application upload your COVID vaccine, and you have to do that 3 to 4 days before your scheduled departure date. And then you would get approval to be in that country. And you would get a visa, essentially indicating that you're COVID free. So now we're going to require people to be vaccinated to enter countries, and foreign governments aren't going to have my personal health information in their database, and I have no control over it, or I have no rights to it. This is very interesting, and misinformation and disinformation are now an active part of cyber. But data collection and data monitoring, and governments collecting more and more data on their people, and then on foreign nationals entering their country, is even more interesting. Given that if a COVID vaccine is there and let's say 60-70% of the population's got it. I know there's no medical research, so we won't get into that, but a very, very interesting thing, and something to wonder about over the New Year holiday here. That's it for our practitioner brief today, guys. I'll be back with tomorrow. We won't be doing a regular practitioner brief. I'll be doing a countdown of 2020 and the stories that mattered most to us, including Solarwinds and Citrix and Covid-19. So tune into that. It'll be a very special episode. And then we break for New Year's, and we'll be back again on Monday with a new way of doing the practitioner brief. You guys are going to love it. It's going to be streamed live 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time each and every single day. So you can tune in, interact, ask questions, and we'll go over the stories together, folks. So until then, folks, stay healthy, Happy New Year, and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media. To our favorite podcast listening platform.